Everyone, Mike Moo here. Today we're going to take a look at another Fanttik product. This is the Fanttik S1 Pro. This is the NEX S1 Pro. It is currently on sale at Costco for $39.99. This is an electric screwdriver that is fairly small and compact. As you can see, it fits, the whole thing fits here in this tube. And in this tube, besides the screwdriver, you also have a bunch of bits. There's 16 total. This has a pretty interesting case that is a metal tube. And it pops in and pops out. The screwdriver just comes out like that. And it's just this little tube right over here. And it's super sleek. It fits in a hand just okay. If I'm holding it, it feels like the end of a lightsaber. And it has a couple of controls on here. There's an off, level 1 torque, level 2 torque, and level 3 torque. Level 1 torque is 1.5 Newton meters. Level 2, I believe, is like 3. And the last one, the highest torque level, runs at 4.2 Newton meters. Now, if you don't know what those are, it's just basically controls how far you can drive your screw and how much electric assist this is going to have. Now, it could peak at 6 Newton meters. I think that's only when the battery is completely full and you're first using it, driving in something, and we'll get more into the testing a little bit later. Also features a built-in light, which is very convenient to have if you are doing any screwing whatsoever in terms of like electronics or in the computers. It's really nice to have this little light, and it stays on for about a couple of seconds after you're done with operating the screwdriver. Now, to operate it, there's really only 2 buttons over here. One is to drive it in, one is to do counterclockwise, which is to drive it back out or to remove the screw. USB-C port back over here. This charges fairly slowly at about 5 watts, but it has a 2000 milliamp hour battery in there. So it really isn't a really big battery. And that is part of the problem that I'm going to get into a little bit. The screwdriver fits into this nice little case, but that's not all. Inside this case, there's 2 ways to get it out. So you got the screwdriver there, and it also comes with 16 of more frequently used bits for what this was designed for. There's 4 on each side, 4 sides each. It includes even a security set, which is neat right over here because I do use security screws from time to time. So you got to ask yourself, are the security screws really secure? You can get them pretty much anywhere. Another thing that they tout about this is that these are magnetic so that it can hold your screws a little bit better. And also they show something about how, look, it doesn't fall out if there goes that mess, but it doesn't necessarily fall out and cause a whole mess when you take it out. I think that was the idea of it anyway. The length is not super long. They're fitting 16 of them in here. It seems like it's okay enough for most general use. However, I remember back in the days when I was putting together computers and ATX cases and even servers, you have to go a little bit deeper than this. So these are not going to be long enough for a lot of the use cases that I might be using. But that's okay because these are standard shanks. These are 1/4 inch. You can get any number of these in any number of lengths that you want. It's really fairly easy to find. I also like that they're a little bit laser engraved labeled to let you know what they are. So that if you are looking for something specific, for instance, this is a Torx TR10 security bit. I don't know if you could see that, but it's actually labeled right there, Torx TR10 over on the bits. So each one of these is labeled. That's something nice. That's something you don't typically see on any cheap screwdriver sets, for instance. So the bits, the quality of the bits, they look very good. All right, so part of your price goes into that. And one other thing I wish about this is that I wish somehow they were able to fit another battery in here that you can dock and also charge a screwdriver too, so you got extended use without having to plug in a cord. Inside the box, they give you a USB-A to USB-C cable. Nothing super fancy about that, but you basically use this to charge the unit over here. And when it is plugged in charging, it lights up. And when it is done charging, it just glows on here. So I'll demonstrate that real briefly. So it's good to know and see at a glance from afar whether or not the screwdriver is charged and ready to go. It did come a bit charged, and I did plug in to charge for a while before I got into the testing. Here are the bits. You can take a look at that. You can do a little screenshot, or you can set a link down below. On the box, specifically, it says this was designed to help you, 1, build your PC, 2, assemble furniture, 3, repair appliances, number 4, build your fence, and number 5, for DIY projects. Now, I've tested this just real briefly on assembling a piece of IKEA furniture. It's an Ivar bookshelf. It has about 16 different wooden screws to put in there, and the holes are already there, but I'm not driving in screws that need to bore itself a hole as it goes in. So I found that the torque at 4.2 was just about the right amount of torque to drive those wood screws in. Here's the thing. There's 16 screws. By the time I was done with 3/4 of them, by the time I was done with about 12 of them, the last 4, I felt the screwdriver was really struggling to get those in. So much so that it was like really whiny and it started to slow down quite a bit, that in the end I just basically tightened it up by hand screwing. Now, if you do just the hand screwing, apparently the maximum torque that this will do would be 8 Newton meters. So these are good numbers to know in case you're building something or putting something together that have very specific labeled Newton meter torque numbers that you cannot exceed, or you should be within the range. And when that comes into mind, if I'm putting together a bicycle or doing some parts or taking it apart, they often have these Newton meters on there to let you know roughly or fairly closely the maximum amount of torque or the range of torque that you should be torquing the screws, basically tightening the screws to. It's good to know that it'll never exceed that. However, putting just 12 screws of those wooden screws in there, it ran out of power, enough to the point where if I need to build 4 of these bookshelves, which it'll probably take about an hour or so to put those together, it's just not going to have enough power to do that. So I can't imagine using that to do any assembling of furniture that requires more than 20, 30 some screws. So that part, not so great. Repair appliances, okay, I could see that, right? If you are a home DIYer, it's going to be enough for that. The thing that might come into an issue with that is just how the bits are. But you can always get third-party bits for that, right? Build your fence. No. No. This is not going to be able to build any amount of reasonable fence. There just is not enough power in here to drive all those screws into the fences without being really frustrated. And then this brings up another major point. This is very slick and sleek. You're wearing some sort of, let's just say, leather gloves. It could start getting a little bit slippery, or it could slip a bit. And this is just way too smooth. There's no grippiness on this at all. It's smooth plastic, and yeah, this could easily slip and fall out of your hands if you're not too careful with it. And sometimes when you're in a hurry building something, let's say if I was building a fence or building a workbench or something, this is definitely not the choice that I'm going to pick up to use. Another final thing is that this is sleek, right? The problem is that ergonomically, this is not a great feeling to do the screwing in. They actually sell a different model that actually folds down more like a trigger. That's way more ergonomic to use than something like this. So I was thinking to myself, hey, if you are just a home DIYer, you're not messing with more than 20 screws at a time, all right, particularly if not wooden screws, you're not driving anything that requires a maximum torque, you're probably going to be okay. But for me, I want to be able to get more use out of my screwdrivers compared to something like this. Now, for the price, it's a good bargain. Just know what you're getting into. This is really, I feel, for light use and not at all for people who have to screw and unscrew a lot of things. All right, that's just going to be a little bit more frustrating. So that's my first take on this. So the big question would be, do you think it's worth it to keep? For me, someone who does need to use screwdrivers professionally, no, this is not going to work for me. I am definitely not going to be using this. I'd rather go back to my Bosch 12-volt system, or even my Milwaukee 12-volt system, or even try out the DeWalt 12-volt system. I think something like that works out a lot better. Those things have more torque settings to do. And unfortunately, if you are very specific about torquing it to a certain level, this is supposed to be electronically controlled to help you with that. I don't know. Haven't really completely tested it, but just from feeling it, yeah, I believe that they really do have that control of it. But there's only 3 settings on here. So it's not really going to help me with anything related to construction or building together real furniture like I do out with my woodworking stuff. This will be just really for putting together things like IKEA furniture, and even that, probably just one piece at a time before you got to charge it up. Okay, so those are my quick takes. Unfortunately, this is not a win for me. I cannot recommend it for most people. I think there are better choices overall. In fact, you might even save a little bit of money, and if you are putting together stuff, anything related to what this thing says, you might actually be better off getting the actual IKEA version of the lithium-ion screwdriver. Of course, it's not going to be this sleek. It's not going to be this cool as far as magnetism-wise. is in terms of how everything goes together, and they're not going to include bits as nice as this. Oh, before I forget, there's one other final thing. They show in the footage on their page about how this magnetically holds onto bits and pieces fairly well. I gotta tell you, it's weak. I was trying to do the assembly with it one hand, attaching the screws, and I don't know what happened. It's like they give you much weaker magnets in this. I don't know if it's a Costco thing, but I don't think so, because there's no specific markings about this, and they do sell this online as well. So I'm going to have to give this a pass. I don't know what people are talking about, why they're raving about this. This is not for me, personally speaking. If you're interested in this, check it out at Costco. If not, please, I encourage you to use my shop links. That's it for this video. Please give us a like, subscribe for more. I'll catch you next one. Thanks for watching.